to.
It was in my garden.
Right, right. That's very nice. What's up? This is Dan Fradenburgh for FIGGERRIDOUT.com, and today I'm joined with Meme Royalty. He was Imager.com's Meme of the Decade from 2010 to 2020. That site should be called Imgur if you have a grip on phonics. What was going through your mind when I asked you to make a video with 10 seconds of silence?
I do anything which is asked.
Right. Well, the internet is a strange place.
You can never figure out what people want.
Right. I guessed that you would be able to stay quiet for 10 seconds because I think that is something that only grown adults can do. I had someone from TikTok try to do the same thing, and she lasted about 1.5 seconds before she couldn't do it anymore. So it was perfect. But in your TED Talk, it seems like you are not only confused by the fact that you're a meme, but you're also confused as to why they call you Hide the Pain Herald. That's what I think. But we'll talk about that in a second. You're Hungarian, and you seem to have had a good enough life and professional career, but you lived most of your life in the shadow of the USSR. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's correct. I was born in 1945, right after the war.
Right.
So
Wow.
all my childhood and young adulthood was in a communist country.
Right. And do you remember, so you would have been 12 when the Hungarian Revolution of 1956 happened. Do
Yes,
you have any?
I was 11.
You were 11, okay.
11.
Yeah, do you have much recollection? Do you remember?
I remember very well. So I was a child, but sometimes I'm still wondering how many things I can recall.
Right.
And how many details I can remember. So I knew that it was history.
Right.
Even though I was a child, 11 years old child,
right.
I knew that big things are happening.
Right. Any idea what percent of the population would have been actively involved? Like, would it be 10% of people were involved?
In the revolt?
In the Hungarian Revolution. Yeah.
Who were effectively fighting against the Russians. I guess only a few hundred or a few thousand, mainly young guy, university students mainly. But I guess almost the whole population of country. Hungarians are 10 millions in the country, and some 5 millions in other countries. But the inhabitants of the country, they hated the regime, and they were happy when there was a possibility to change it. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. We know it now. But still, it was a very exciting and interesting time.
I bet.
And at that time, our apartment was immediately just a few steps away from the place when the whole thing started, from one of the main demonstrations. And I was there in that demonstration because
well, the USSR is gone. You have nothing to fear.
The USSR is gone, thanks God.
Well,
even in Russia.
Right. And that was the question I wanted to have next, was whether you have strong opinions about capitalism and socialist regimes, and if that's something you would talk about online. Do you talk about those sorts of things online?
Oh, we can discuss it. So with my mind now, my grown-up mind, I guess that everything has a good side and a bad side. So So there were some good things in the so-called socialist era too, and there are some bad things in our capitalism too.
Right. Right.
For instance, just to say some examples, there was no jobless people in the socialism. All the people were it was a must to work. So if you had no job, you were put into jail.
Wow.
And there was fast no crimes at all. There was order.
Wow.
Order after repression, of course, but that was order. You can freely walk on the streets in late night. By the way, you can walk in the streets these days too.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's good to know. That's good to know.
And so in the socialist time, there was less differences between the salaries. So between the richest and the poorest, it was the difference made, let's say, 1 to 10. Now it's 1 to 1,000 or a million.
Right, right.
And it's I guess it's no good. On
Yeah,
the other hand, we didn't have access to industrial goods,
right,
to consumables.
right, right.
For instance, if it was impossible to buy in the stores blue jeans,
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
or drink a Coke.
Or drink a Coke, right? Yeah, the thing that keeps on going through my head on that argument about capitalism and socialism, I think the wealthy, their argument is confiscation of people's property is not okay. Like what even gives a government the right to confiscate people's property? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh, well, it's a tough question.
Yeah, I mean,
Because
I just mean taking people's
I
things.
guess very big fortunes. I don't think it's a good thing. Then the debtors can have this huge fortunes.
Right, and you have a great grasp on math, I'm aware, because I know that that you have a history in electrical engineering, and
That's right.
Over here, electrical engineers have always had high pay because the math is super difficult. I guess you were working with vacuum tubes when you first started, right? Or were you already working on solid
Yes,
state transistors?
when I finished the university, I made my thesis on vacuum tubes, for instance.
Right, right.
Well, it was the time. It was a revolution in industry too, when the vacuum technology was turned into the solid state technology.
Right, right.
And I was working in as a lighting engineer. That was my specialty. And in the recent years, we survived a similar revolutions in lighting. So the light bulb is replaced now by LEDs.
Right.
So it's the same change in lighting that it was in the electronics 40 or 50 years ago.
Right, right. And now that we've discussed that, a moment ago I was talking about how you seem to be a little bit confused as to why people called you Hide the Pain Herald. And
I
so now
still
that
don't know.
I'm going to try and help you discover that. So to be honest with you, I think there are two sources of pain that I guess people see in your face. One is the problems of living in Eastern Europe after the World Wars and the USSR and all that kind of stuff. But the other pain of yours, I'm guessing, is the one that we share. I also studied electrical engineering, and I've got some of the same lines as you. You see, like if I go like this, I got the crow's feet, and they're not going up. My ones go down, and I think it's from me going, huh? Like when something isn't working right. Why isn't this working? That's the pain. But there's my joke. But what part of electrical engineering did you enjoy most?
Well, as I told you, I was involved in lighting, and I've been working in a testing laboratory for many years. I was the head of that laboratory, and I enjoyed testing and laboratory working very much. I think that was the best part. And the worst part was the administration, writing protocols and
Right.
or the calibration routines.
Right.
That was a little bit boring.
All right. With electrical engineering, like I found that I didn't use any of my education on circuitry, and I haven't had to do math on a circuit since I left university. But I've made my money from programming. But what part of electrical engineering did you find most difficult?
Well, to fulfill the requirement of the standards, there are so many, so let's say, stupid regulations in the standards you had to follow.
Right. That makes sense. That makes
sense. Maybe that was the problem.
Right.
My biggest problem.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, one thing, this is a change of subject. One thing I was concerned about back in February of this year was a collapse of the financial system. I don't think that's as likely anymore, even though America is having a lot of problems right now. But you were an electrical engineer during the Cold War. You said that the salaries weren't that different, but I imagine your lifestyle was much more comfortable than most people at that time. Is that accurate?
I don't think so.
Okay.
So there was so little differences in salaries. So everybody had just almost the same amount of salary.
Right.
My starting, I remember my starting salary.
Okay.
It was 1,500 forints. It's at that time $1 was let's say 15. So it's about $100.
About $100 a month, you're saying?
A month.
Right.
Yes.
And that was back in
50 years ago.
Right. Okay. So all right. So that means like 1970. Okay. Yeah. So that's really interesting. Right. Okay. As far as how you guys write electrical engineering equations and things in Hungary, I imagine the variables are the same, right? Like voltage equals so V equals IR.
They are almost the same. We use a little different notations because the Hungarians took over the German notations. So you use, for instance, V for voltage. We use U for voltage. I don't know the reason why, but we use the letter U.
Yeah. Okay. And so then for current and resistance, it's still I and R.
That's right.
Okay. And do they use J in AC circuits for the square root of -1?
Well, it's different. In the regular maths, they use the letter I for imaginary.
Right.
But in the electrical engineering, I is used for current.
Right.
And that's why we also use the letter J for the imaginary number.
Okay. And trigonometry, that's all the same. It's still sine, cosine.
It's all the same.
Okay.
You say sine and cosine, we say sinus and cosinus, but it's the
Oh,
same.
okay. There you go. So change the topic. How bad has the pandemic been for you? Would you say that it was the scariest time in your life, or would you say that there was another time that was worse? A lot of people are.
So many people are scared.
Right.
I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not afraid of getting the virus.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Is
And
that because you feel like you've done enough?
If I see the figures, every day the daily figures are announced in the radio and the TV,
Mm-hmm.
and
well, I want to share
about
one
500 600 new cases
mm-hmm.
happen each day,
Yeah.
but only two or three casualties. So it's to my opinion, it's not so dangerous as it's said.
Right.
So there are other diseases which are more severe. Lung cancer, for instance, is the leading cause of casualties in Hungary because
right.
of a lot of smoking. A lot of people are smoking.
Oh, okay.
But nobody
yeah.
talks about this.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's
So,
yeah. Well,
actually, I'm not afraid of getting the COVID. But it affected my life negatively because a lot of my programs have been cancelled this year.
Oh,
I was invited to the various festivals all around the world. Everything has been cancelled.
I see. Well, at least you spend time with me. That's as much fun, right? But yeah, the one thing I've been thinking about a lot recently is, especially in places like America, it's very difficult to get accurate news right now. It's very difficult to get news that you can trust. And I have one trick that most people can't use, which is I know people all over the world. And so what I'll do is I'll talk to people in other countries and say, hey, what's going on over there? Hey, what's going on where you are? And it gives me a lot more reliability, even though there's so much fake news, as they say. So I don't know if you have that ability as well. But go ahead.
So I guess we are somehow misled by the data. We don't know how the data are coming from. The number of new cases depends very much on how on the amount of testing. And when a lot of people were tested, then the number of the infected is high. When less tests were made, then the number of infected is less too. And there's a group in my management who are working with me, and they are not living in the same city where I live. I live in Budapest; it's the capital city. They live more than 200 kilometers from here, and there was infections in that group of the guys who work with me. But it was not serious. So they survived it in 2 or 3 days without any serious consequences.
Right. I have a question for you. You said that you live in Budapest, and I had somebody ask me a question about 20 years ago. And the question that he asked me, it was not a smart question, but I'm going to ask you anyway. The question is, there are these huge rock bands, I can't remember which ones, like Van Halen or Ozzy Osbourne, and they do live albums, so they record a concert and they put it out on a CD, and lots of them are live from Budapest. Why Budapest? Like, what's special about Budapest for rock concerts? Any idea?
Oh, because every fifth Hungarian lives in Budapest. So Budapest has a population of 2 million, and the whole country is 10.
Right.
So everything happens in the capital, or at Lake Balaton in the summer.
Right.
It's we don't have any seaside, and Balaton is our seaside.
Right. That makes sense. You're landlocked. Okay. And how many languages does a typical Hungarian speak?
Nowadays, young people speak English. They learn English in schools. When I was young, it was not so typical that people spoke any foreign language. And mostly the country guys, they spoke only Hungarian. And when I started to go to school, it was a must to learn Russian. And the second language was German. And I started to learn English when I was in the secondary school.
Oh, okay.
So at the age of 14 or 15.
Okay, so generally maybe
generally young people do speak English.
Okay, so
elder people not certainly.
Okay, but generally 2 languages, or is it more than that?
Hungarian and English.
Okay. Yeah,
I personally learned, of course, Russian because it was a must. Learned German. I can speak German too. And started to learn Spanish, but I don't speak Spanish too well.
Yeah, but it's easy to read, right? That's the nice thing about Spanish. It's not like French where the pronunciation changes all the time, like English as well. But let's go to the digital world for a moment. The internet is not going away without a catastrophe. How much of a computer user have you been? Do you use, like, how often do you use computers in general?
Quite a lot.
Quite a lot.
So
okay.
I was involving in computing technology very early when I was working as an electric engineer. So in the 70s, I started to work with computers in the 70s. And I made some programming too.
Okay.
And I made my first personal homepage in 96.
That's the same year I think I did.
Really?
That's funny. Yeah, that's funny.
It was very expensive that time to join to the internet, dial-up modems.
Right.
And there was very high phone costs.
Right.
And that time in 96, I was working at an international company. Maybe I can tell the name. It was Siemens. And they had the broadband internet. So that was the first time when I really met the internet.
Right.
It was 24 years ago.
Right.
So I might say I'm quite familiar with the technology of the internet and the computers at all.
Okay, so becoming a meme, that did not change the amount that you use a computer, right?
I'm sitting in front of my computer more than prior.
Right.
Because I have so many fans. So I have a small group behind me who can help me in this task. But I still have to watch the comments to upload new contents. So, but I like to do this.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. And so which sites do you frequent? Do you go on like Reddit, or I was talking about Imager, where you were the meme of the decade. Imgur.
I don't use Reddit. I know that I'm there, and I'm good. So I don't. I mainly use Facebook, Instagram, and there is a copy of Facebook in Russia. It's called VK. I have a site, a Russian site there too.
Okay. Okay.
I post in Russian sometimes
That's
for my
fun.
fans in Russia.
Okay.
By the way, the Russians, there were the Russians who discovered me.
Oh, okay. So you did the stock photos and then the Russians found you and then they put you all over the internet. Is that?
Yes, as it was a Russian guy who discovered my real identity, because after the stock photos, nobody knew who I was.
Oh, right.
But this Russian guy has investigated, did some investigation, and he find out who am I really I am, and start reading me messages that many people don't believe in Russia that I'm a real human being.
Right.
And I need to show myself. And at first I ignored his request, but he repeated it again and again. So at least I said, yes, okay, let's do it. And then I uploaded a photo on that Russian site, me with a piece of paper, and it was written in Russia that I live.
Right. Oh, I live. Right. That's funny. Yeah. They do that for Ask Me Anything. Well, I've got something to show you because since you're basically immortal from all of these stock photos and all these different
it's
memes.
Strange, but
it's extremely strange. Yeah. It's yeah.
He printed. Almost as a photo.
I'm still figuring out my circuitry. But I'm the new and improved and immortal version of Dan Fradenburgh. Dan was careful to be as genuine as possible in his sample video, which means this AI version, me, for lack of a better word, can flawlessly take my expressions of honesty and apply them to any script such as this.
But basically what I'm doing is I'm uploading myself to the internet. And now that I have a digital avatar, I can speak from beyond the grave, right? From after death with my...
Yes.
Right.
So we all be long dead and gone, and our digital image will survive.
Right. So, and the dead version of me can say more things than the living version of me ever could. The future
kind of immortality.
Yes, exactly. So I heard your quote that it is much more enjoyable to have fun with young people than to listen to the medical complaints of my contemporaries.
Yes, I thought so.
Right. So do you have? Yeah, go ahead.
I still feel the same way.
Right. I completely understand.
It was in my TED talk it was my TED talk in 2 years ago, maybe.
Right. So my question based on that though is, do you have any advice for young people?
Well, I would say that the life is giving new challenges day after day, and I would suggest to be ready to embrace these challenges and to try yourself out in every region of life, to do things you've never done before, and you can never know which will bring you success.
Right, and of course you're the perfect example of that. Getting famous for something that had nothing to do with your career at all. So from one immortal to another, it's been a pleasure to have met you. Thank you for being here today.
You're welcome.